Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is and wherever you're listening. Join with me as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
Hello.
Mr. Joe Whittaker.
It's coming on.
Jason McGinn.
G'day.
And I got rid of him the other day, but he's back. Jamie Page.
He's coming home.
Oh, God.
Not again. You're not coming home with me again.
It's going to be one of those weeks. Anyway.
We also have a very special guest on with us this evening. He is a woodturner from Northampton here in the UK. So just up the road from me, just down the road from Joe, it is John Clothier. Welcome, John. How are you getting on?
Hello, I'm good, yeah. Thank you.
Good stuff. Now, we met at Makers Central. I think we all met at Makers Central, actually. So we should have a good topic this evening. So I'll give you just a second or two to compose yourself while I run through this week's kind of normal shout outs, thank yous, etc., etc. So we're a little bit slim on the comments this week, but we have thank yous and shout outs to Jim Dockrell, Ragtie and Harnell Media for getting in touch with us via last week's show on YouTube. I've been slack today. It's been a lovely sunny day. The barbecue's been on, so I haven't actually checked SoundCloud. But over in the live chat, we have David Woodbarber, Maggie Kavanagh, Cat's Listening, and a few other people. Highland Pam over at Highland Boxes, Harnell Media again, Wayne the Woodturner. Oh, it's all gone mad just a second ago. Paul, there's loads of people. So hello, everyone who's over in the live chat. Don't forget just to click on all the little 3 dots next to each other's names over there in the live chat, subscribe to each other and hopefully us as well. So that gets the community spinning round. As always, tonight's podcast is brought to you in part by our good friends Glyn over at Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturners Abrasive Paste, and our good friend Chad over at mancrafting.tm, or I like to make cups.com, I think his website is, if I remember rightly. But no, you can find...
No, that's wrong.
It's
mancraftingtm.com.
Oh, this is so confusing. And that is why, if you want to find out about our sponsors, you go to our website, makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, because then I only have to remember one thing. Chris, we don't actually have any random listener questions this week, do we? But I think we do have quite a public, but rather important and exciting bit of information to impart on everyone. So who wants to mention that? Is that really kind of your remit, isn't it, Jamie?
That would be Jamie. Yeah,
I can handle that. Obviously, with the I guess you'd call it success of this year of Maker Central, Nick has officially decided to announce that there shall be another one, and it is the dates have been released. It is the 11th and 12th of May at the NEC in Birmingham. And another Maker Central. So get your tickets as soon as they're out. I'm not sure if they're out yet, but I'm sure you can go and find out all the details and who's going at www.makercentral.co.uk. And that's that.
Not to be confused with Makers International.
Yeah. We're not doing that.
We're so doing that again.
We're not doing that again. For an entire year.
While we're talking about websites and social medias and all that kind of jazz, I'm going to plug the podcast bits and bobs because we don't really do that enough. So as the people listening here are obviously really know that we go live on YouTube on a Sunday
because there's more than one YouTube. There's plural.
Yeah. I don't know why I say that with an S. I heard it somewhere once and just thought it was brilliant, like genius. So anyway, on YouTube, on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, or 9:30 UK time. We also obviously have SoundCloud and iTunes for when it gets released on the Wednesday, around about the same time as we go live. It gets officially released after the edit's done and things like that on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, etc. But for some of you that may not know, we also have a Facebook page on on Facebook, Instagram on Instagram, and our website, as Richard just said, is makersinternationalpodcast.com. And we also have a group that we put together called Makers on YouTube, which is over on Facebook as well. So yeah, you can come over there, have a bit of a giggle and post your projects that you've done and kind of chat to the community. So yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Right, so back to our guest. John, you're in the spotlight tonight, so we're now going to be talking to you pretty much constantly, hopefully. As I sort of alluded to before, I think apart from obviously Jason being the kind of exception in inverted commas, I think we have actually all met in person last year at Makers Central.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, you kind of sort of, I don't want this to come across in a negative way, but you sort of came out of the woodwork in terms of on my radar. I wasn't really aware of, because obviously you're a turner, aren't you? So I'm not a turner, although I do play on the lathe occasionally. So I guess you're sort of outside my in peripheral vision, as it were. But you're really close to, you're like 2-3 miles up the road from me in Northamptonshire. Yeah. But you're not originally from Northamptonshire, are you?
No, not really. No, I'm actually born in London. I moved out to Reading when I was, I don't know, probably 12, 13, and then moved up to Northampton about, I'm going to say about 9 years ago.
Right. So I mean, if we kind of, I guess, start in the London area when you were a wee nipper, as they say, someone's going to ask what your origin story is. So let's go right back to your London days and start from scratch. So what was it like growing up in London and being a maker? Were you even a maker back then?
Yeah, I've pretty much always been a maker. I guess it's always that same question: define what's a maker.
Please do.
I was always playing with Lego and building things. I was always trying to make things. I remember being out in the garage playing with my dad's tools and just cobbling bits of wood together and not really making anything but just enjoying the process. And I guess it really started there, really. Kind of where it went from there. I mean, when I left school, I was hanging around with a lot of guys who kind of were into engineering. So I went into doing engineering apprenticeship, when I left school. I didn't go to college or university or anything. But after that, it kind of changed and I went off a different career path. But there's always been that desire to want to construct, make something, produce something out of effectively what's nothing.
Okay, but so what was the sort of the, I'm presuming that from the apprenticeship side, that was mostly metal?
Yeah, it was all metal fabrication, welding, paint spraying, all that kind of thing. It was certainly nothing to do with wood. Wood was really just a cheap thing that you can kind of turn your hand to with a few basic hand tools when you're at home messing around with your dad, without hurting yourself too much. I mean, when you start getting into metal work, obviously we've got the things like forging, but you've got welding and everything kind of involves lots of sparks and a little bit more danger, I think. So wood's a nice, easy medium when you're young. But as an adult, wood's actually much more enjoyable medium to me. It's and I do very much see wood as a medium. I know it's very contentious about with some of the things that I do with wood. Take a lovely piece of wood and then completely cover it in color and paint and what have you. But I do very much see wood as a medium, as I do metal. But metal's just that little bit harder to work with and without lots of expensive machinery.
So I think you can probably do some pretty expensive machinery in woodworking that people would agree.
No, absolutely. That is true. I mean, when you start to look at lathes and what have you, I mean, they're probably comparable, but you can get started with woodwork a lot cheaper. Effectively, what do you need to start woodworking? Well, a saw, maybe some chisels, and you're there. With metal work, it's a little bit more involved.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. You said to start it, to start out. It's going to be okay. I got you. No, I hear you, and I'm not going to take any offense. And trust me, while you were saying that, I was trying to find defense to take so that I could, I could give you a hard time. But now that you've explained yourself, I'm going to let that ride. I'm going to let it slide.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you get going, these things are totally transformed. I dread to think how much money, you could spend on woodworking machinery if you wanted to. But in order to get to that point, usually you've been through that beginner stage, that I'm going to make myself some shelves for the wall. I'm going to make myself a wine rack. Those kind of basic things where you've got a drill, you've got a saw, and that's about all you really need. When you're going on to metalworking, you just need more to get going, really. It's different skill sets. There's a lot of crossover, but it's different skill sets as well. I mean, metalwork is more precise, but metal stays where you put it. Wood doesn't.
It's certainly to a bigger extent. I think. I mean, I did the last thing I'm going to do is contradict and argue, but I just know there's going to be people out there listening at some point going, "Oh, you can't say that," because when I work in the workshop and we're talking 2 thou tolerances. That changes the next day when the sun comes up because metal. The tolerances can be much tighter in metal than you can get away with more in wood generally.
Let's be honest, we don't tend to go much beyond about a millimeter, half a millimeter, whereas in metalwork, you're going down to thousandths.
Potentially. Okay. All right. I'm not going to jump into this. Let's just move on because we could nitpick this little portion of the topic, but I'd much rather get to know you better. And by the way, looking at you behind you, John, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to click on you because I have to actually really look at you. I like the wall of people you have behind you that you took pictures with. Did you get those photos all done at Maker Central?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were all selfies from Maker Central. I kind of made it a point that I wanted to, rather than just going around collecting stickers and memories, which is all great, and I've got all that up on my sticker board, I wanted to kind of do something a little bit different. So I got selfies of everybody.
No, that's awesome. And I was looking off to your left, which would be on my right of the screen. I see Sophie. I see Sophie above Sophie. I see Peter Brown. And then I see me over Peter Brown. That may be the only time that ever friggin' happens. But the first time I looked at that entire wall, you know who the first person I saw was? Take a guess. Who's the first person? Joe, who's the first person you see?
Me.
Okay, I asked the wrong dude. Richard, who's the first person you see?
Paul Wilmore was the first person I saw on there.
Jamie?
I saw me because I saw them all the other day, so I knew exactly where I was.
What a bunch.
First person I saw was Peter Brown.
Okay, well then, all right. All right. The first person I saw was that redheaded Alex guy. It's like from Al's Hack Shack. But whatever. Anyway, all right. I'm sorry. I just thought that was kind of cool the way you did that, John. That's very unique.
I was just really impressed that Jamie turned around and said he actually knew where he was.
I can't. I don't even see Jamie on that wall, but maybe it's a mental block that
left furthest cover to the left, one up on the one up from the bottom.
Okay.
Which one are you looking at? This one over here. Where have we got? Left, up.
That's it.
Yeah. There we go.
I can't see him. No, I can't see him. No, you can point all day. I'm still not going to see him.
It's the guy in the background just there, Chris.
That's the guy.
Not this guy. It's just the guy in the back. Yeah.
Wow. For the folks on iTunes and SoundCloud, I apologize. We've just totally ignored the fact that this is an audio podcast. But all right, I'm sorry. Richard, please take this interview over.
That blank is above me.
It doesn't matter. Oh
no, God. I'm not sure who that is.
I'm sorry.
He came up to me and said, "Can you please take my picture with me?" So
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, for those of you that are listening and not watching, behind John, he has a mural of photos that he took with himself and other people that he met at Maker Central behind him with his logo in the middle, and we were just kind of spotting, people that we knew that he took a picture with. But Richard, please move on.
I'm desperately trying to think of some way to move on from that. So I think
I can help if you like. Boxers or briefs?
Oh God,
Jamie, you really don't need to ask, do you?
I don't. I've got photo evidence.
Yeah.
Well, there's a conversation to start with, because for anyone that doesn't know, just very quickly, you both went to the UK and Ireland Woodturning Meetup Symposium in Coventry.
Yeah.
Was it last week? And during that period, Jamie stayed at John's. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
correct.
So what we're all dying to know now is, what is the photo evidence and how did that come about? Because, you know, what's it actually like, John, having this person stay in your house?
Creepy.
Who was between?
And
Yeah,
why would you subject yourself to that?
Well, I kind of learned very quickly and then palmed him off onto you, Richard, didn't I?
Pretty much, yeah.
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 No, it really was an honor to have Jamie come and stay for a couple of days. You know, he was very polite. You know, he didn't eat at the dog's bowl that often. Not after I told him a couple of times. You know, it takes him a couple of times to kind of get the message. But no, it was.
Snapped his nose a couple times.
Wasn't really his nose, but yeah, yeah. No, it was just, you know, we just decided, you know, it'd be nice to kind of, rather than go to UKIS and stay over in a hotel, just to kind of, you know, stay at mine and crash at mine for a bit and get the opportunity to go into the shed and, you know, do some wood turning together, which was great. I
mean, obviously, we all kind of, or most of us, I say we all, because I'm just kind of hypothetically honorarily including Jason into this. We all met at Maker Central, and obviously that was a big community affair. You guys went to UKIS, and that's a big community affair. So what, if you've been wood turning for a long period of time, what sort of brought you kind of from the periphery of the community into what I guess people would think about the kind of the core with the YouTube, and obviously because you're on YouTube as well, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
What was the sort of the motivation for that, and kind of putting yourself out there onto the stage more?
Sure. Well, actually, I haven't been wood turning for that long. I started wood turning around the same time as I started my YouTube channel.
Okay.
I say, kind of going back to the making things. I've always, you know, I always wanted to kind of get more into doing things with wood because it's so much more fun to work with, in my opinion. And I kind of started off, I was going to start making things. I didn't know what, but I wanted to start making things. And having kind of seen an advert in a magazine for a really cheap lathe, I decided to get one and give it a shot. Now, there's a guy who I work with who's also a YouTuber, and it's nothing to do with making. He's into computer games and all that kind of thing. And he kept on at me and said, "Oh, you should do YouTube. You should do YouTube and kind of like chart your journey." And I thought, you know what? Actually, that's not a bad idea. So when I bought the lathe, I think I'd made kind of one or two little pieces, and then decided to start up the YouTube. So, and that was. It's not quite 2 years ago. It was probably about 2 years ago I decided I was going to get back into woodworking. And I think it was about September time. So 2 years in September that I got the first lathe. So I guess that's probably why I've kind of come out of the woodwork, because I wasn't really there to start with. You know, as is often the case with the, you know, kind of like the person who's just finding their feet within the hobby as well as with YouTube, everything kind of started off very slowly. You know, a couple of videos that were a little bit dodgy, you know, not great in you know, filmed on the phone and spent most of the time looking off to the side, and, you know, all the usual things that a lot of people go through. And then I decided I loved it so much, and without a doubt, I'm so pleased that I've found my passion, and wood turning and creating with wood is without a doubt my passion. I absolutely love it, and I'm so glad that I found it, because I got that opportunity, having discovered it, to actually do something a little bit more with it. And that's when I went from the little 8x6 workshop that I had, which was just the garden shed that had the lawnmower and the bikes and what have you in it, and I was able to build the new workshop. Okay, it's not big, certainly by American standards, but it's, you know, probably 3 times the size of what I had. So I actually, when I did that started that in the January, might have been the February. So I've been wood turning for 3-4 months, stopped for about 6 months while I built the workshop, and then got back to it. So, and that was only just over a year ago. And I think that's when things started to change, because then I got back into got back to the woodworking, got back to the wood turning, and then started to put out videos, and kind of went from there really.
Do you take it from a hobby point of view and just I do it because I love doing it, or are you a little bit more sort of serious about what you do? And because going back to the kind of a lot of people that certainly I spoke to at Maker Central and these sort of social events, and dive in, guys, if you've got a similar or contradictory tale. But I bumped into a lot of people who were, it's kind of a therapy and an escape and get away from what I do day to day. But there were people who were, very, very seriously into their hobby, and obviously then you've got the top tier that's their full-time thing. I mean, where do you kind of sit within that structure?
Well, it's definitely a hobby. I mean, I work full-time with a regular day job, as I think most of us do. I'm obviously have a family as well, so I'm limited on my time. I get the odd weekends and the odd evening sessions out in the workshop, but I've always been one, if I'm going to do something, I put 100% into it. So I don't just titivate with it. I'm actually kind of a little bit jealous of people who can just go into their workshop and potter for a little while and kind of then come back out, feel absolutely satisfied that they've just had some fun. And I feel really jealous of that, because I don't do that. What I tend to do is I tend to think, right, I need to make something that I can then do something with. So I'll make a pen in order to sell it. I don't just make a pen for the fun of making it, even though the pleasure is actually in the making. Which is
gotcha. So it's not, I'm not going to make a pen because I need a pen because I've lost my pen. It's the intention is to then pass it on to an end user.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything that I make, I'm consciously in the back of my mind thinking, would somebody want to buy this, or would I be happy in selling it to somebody? If I don't feel confident that somebody would want to buy it, then I probably won't do it. But I do it for me, which is a little bit back to front.
I can totally see that. But do you find that YouTube helps a lot with that? Like, could you see yourself making something purely for a video in that point of view? Because I know I do that myself. Like half the stuff that I make now, I wouldn't make it if I wasn't making a video for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have definitely done that, where I've created a video just for the sake of creating a video. And I've not been necessarily happy with the project. There's been a couple of things that I've made, and I've done it with a video, and I've looked at it and gone, yeah, let's just get in the bin. But I have literally just jumped in.
But you start out with this, the mindset is the same though, because whether you're doing it just for a video or how you described your process where, I want to make something that I can sell, you're still looking for a level that is going to be something you don't mind putting out there. So you're still setting a bar to the point where you don't want to just go ahead and run in your shop, make something that, hey, it works. I'm happy with it. And I don't really care if it looks good or not. You worry about, could I sell it? Or if I can't, if that isn't your process and you're thinking video, can I make this a video and let people see what I do? And can I feel good about that? Or am I just, because from all I'm getting from you is, I don't want to throw rubbish out there. I'm not gonna do that. That's just not your mindset when you go in the door. But I had a second question for you, because you touched on something I think is kind of an interesting thought. Because you said you discovered, and you're very happy that you have discovered the woodworking world that you're currently in today. Yeah. But you also earlier on mentioned that you tinkered around and did things with your dad, and you were working with wood initially, and then you obviously got into metalworking or whatever the case may be. And I'm curious about this one, because I'm curious about your perspective on this. Do you think that it took that initial dabbling around, monkeying around, perhaps when you were much younger in woodworking, did it take that experience to allow you to rediscover it as an adult? what I'm saying is, would you have discovered woodworking and be enjoying it as much as you are today if you hadn't familiarized yourself with it at an early age? What do you think?
Probably not. I think it's a good question. I think having those kind of foundations that have been passed on you when you are very young, it really does kind of give you something that, I mean, okay, put it this way. When I got back into woodworking and I decided I wanted to start doing things, there were certain things I didn't have to learn. I didn't have to learn how to use a saw. Now, I know that sounds very basic because I was given that when I was really young, and I was taught by my dad and grandparents and what have you, how to hold a saw and how to use it and how to cut with a saw. So I was able to just think, right, I need to make a cut, pick up a saw and do it. Whereas I think often when you pick up a new hobby, you have to learn those very basic things. I mean, for example, I tried to learn to play golf and I can't play golf. And
very few of us can.
I really struggled with the basic things, such as the fact that you have to hold your hands in a certain way. It was just so unnatural. Now, I think if you're taught these things at a young age, it means when you move on to doing them later on as an adult, you're not actually starting at step 1. You're starting at step 2 or step 3. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think without that foundation as a child, woodworking may not even have been something I would have thought about or maybe not even considered. But then having tried it and I'm like, okay, I kind of like this. Yeah, without a doubt, it's where the passion came from.
Because that's kind of the route that I went, John. That's why I asked. Because I discovered woodworking when I was young, because my father was a woodworker, and then I went off into a totally different field that had nothing to do with making and being in a shop whatsoever throughout my teenage and college years. And then I rediscovered it when I got much older. But I rediscovered it as Richard had alluded to earlier. I was one of those people that rediscovered it as a therapy. It was a way for me to, because I mean, I worked in a very hectic and very, it doesn't matter. I needed the time, the alone time in my shop. And I found that I needed a place to go. And so that's when I started building my own shop to get back in. And I rediscovered woodworking that way. But I don't know that I would have found that if it wasn't for the original foundation that I had gotten when I was a child. And
totally.
And that could actually probably work either way, whether if your father or somebody that influenced you when you were a child was into metalworking, it may be the same thing. I mean, you may have been dabbling in it when you were a kid, maybe played around with wood or whatever the case may be in the middle. And then later on as an adult, you rediscover it again and you find a passion for it. I think it's just, I think roots have a lot to do with where we end up.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And kind of, don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy working with metal. And, it's a different skill set. There are a lot of crossovers, as there always is with these things, but it's just, wood can be, and I stress this is a can be, it's not always, it can be more forgiving. It can allow you to play a little bit more. And that's where, why I think I enjoy it, because as you say, it's a therapy as well. It is that I want to go out and just relax and do something which is fun, and that's kind of where it starts. And although, as is always the case, as I'm sure everybody here has been through exactly the same thing, you start off and then things don't quite go to plan, and then it becomes really stressful, and then you just kind of wish you'd never started in the first place, and the whole therapy thing goes out the window. But it is definitely really nice to have that relaxation and your space. And I think, especially as family people, having your own workshop is really having our own space where we are in control and we can do what we want to do in the way that we want to do it, even if the outcome isn't always as we would like.
You mentioned about sorry, Jason, you've got family, you've got work and all the rest of it. Do you manage to get much kind of family workshop time? I noticed on your Instagram the other day you posted a picture of, I think it was your son. In fact, I think it was on Sophie's mini makers that I saw it. He'd done the resin art.
Yeah.
Do you get much time or even much request from your family, your kids that want to do stuff, or is it like, oh, Dad's doing that noisy thing again in the shed, just leave him alone, be back at tea time?
as is often the case with young children, I mean, I've got the one boy at home with me who's 6, going on 16, which I think we can all relate to. He has his own space in my workshop, so he's got his own area underneath the bench where he's got his own tool set, his own bits of wood, and ever so often he does just like to come up into the shed and just play and do the basic things. And I've tried to kind of sit down with him and, again, teach him those basic skills. You know, how do you hold down a piece of wood while you cut it, how to cut it, you know, how to use a screwdriver. Those real basic things that kind of I think we all need to know, regardless of whether we want to do it as a hobby or not. I think it's useful just from an everyday point of view. Doing a project, he does like to come up and do a project, but he's also very much of the YouTube generation, and he'd kind of rather sit there and watch YouTube than be in YouTube.
But John, it goes back to where you were when you were a youth. By doing what he's doing and you helping him do that, there's no telling, you could be planting the seeds for a future discovery for him in life. Absolutely. For him to enjoy. So I would keep the expectations low, but know that even though he may not be full on, you know, Daddy, I want to be out there every minute with you. You're exposing him to something that he may discover later in life and enjoy it as much as you are. And so I, you know, knock on wood. I mean, you and I both know, because we're kind of in the same world. That's a happy feeling. So totally. Good for you. Yeah, 100%. Good for you. Well, hey, you're providing your child an opportunity. Jason, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just curious in your angle of getting into YouTube along with your hobby, and you mentioning how you have like a purpose to each, you know, key component that you're doing. So with YouTube, how do you vision that fitting in with your hobby and moving you forward as you kind of build with that and your hobby?
What I'm trying to do with my YouTube is to put out a video a week. And that means the weekend is devoted to me creating YouTube video. So, and then of course I edit during the week to put up the following week. I find, again, a lot of makers out there that do YouTube find this as well, that it takes so much longer to create the project when you're filming it as it just to kind of just get on and do it. So because my time is limited, pretty much everything I do gets videoed. Not always, but for the most part, I would say it does. I don't know if doing YouTube is actually a bit of a distraction, because while it certainly reduces the amount of time that I get to spend actually creating things, what it does give me is more, I'm quite sure the word is, but it's the social aspect, the kind of the interaction between people, and actually I'm finding that side of things, so communicating via things like Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and it's all kind of tied into the fact that you become, I guess, a social media personality. I'm not quite sure the better way to put it, but you're somebody that's known by people, so they're interested in what you're up to. It's interesting and useful to have that as a kind of a secondary thing to go along with the actual creation.
That's interesting. And actually, Pam over in the chat has kind of asked a follow on to that. She wants to know where you think your hobby and your channel twined are likely to go in the future. What do you?
Yeah, that is a good question, and it's not something that I could really have an answer to. Pretty much both of those things, I'm happy to let them take their own course. I really enjoy making, and I think if anything was to give, it would actually probably be the YouTube. I think I could probably give up doing the YouTube, but I wouldn't give up creating. But I like to share things, and generally speaking, and I know this isn't the case for everybody, but generally speaking, I think woodworking and wood turning, they're very solitary pastimes. They're things that you spend doing on your own, and unless you go to a club or a group where you can kind of meet up with fellow people like that and actually discuss what you've been up to, social media gives us that outlet to say, hey, I made this, or hey, I made that. Whereas otherwise you'd be like, okay, I've made that, now what do I want to do? And it gives you that reward and that satisfaction that goes with it.
Well, it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds, John, because you get the solitary time in the shop while you're making whatever you're making for YouTube video, which is very much on your own. And it's also, if once you get accustomed to the camera being on or a microphone being hung around your neck, or once you get very familiar with that, and it's very much still a very solitary thing that you're doing that you can be very comfortable with. But it's also a very community-oriented thing because you release that into the public and let people view it and see it, critique it if they would like, comment on it if they would like. But then beyond that, it also puts you into a community of people that becomes a society of people that do the same things that you do. So there's like 3 steps there. I'm getting the alone time I want. I'm able to video something so that it gets my face out there so I can have the interaction that I would also like to have. But then beyond that, I'm also getting brothers and sisters in a community that know exactly what I'm coming from when I say something. And so it's kind of an all-encompassing thing, because I don't want, if you took every one of the people who watch my videos and if you stuck them in my shop and said, here, watch Chris work, I would absolutely hate that. I would hate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And trust me, they would hate it too, because I mean, it wouldn't be, but it does allow us to do our solitary mental thing that we want to do, and then release it to the people and get the interaction, and then beyond that, talk to the people who do what we do beyond that to get even more of a brotherhood happening, or sisterhood, whichever the case may be. It kind of works all the way around. That's kind of why I like it as much as I do. And I kind of was on the fence of saying, I think that's basically what John's saying as well. It's the same thing, but it's beyond that same thing. Yeah.
I know I'm kind of one who often doesn't say things the way that it's up here. So yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. You just phrased it so much better than I did.
Which by the way, is very unusual.
Yeah.
So we'll both take brownie points today. There you go.
But actually, I think the internet has done one thing that's really useful for us, and it's previously. I mean, if we go back, prior to the internet, which some of us will remember, perhaps not all of us in here, but we used to have to physically go and be with people in order to talk to people about the things that we enjoy. We don't have to do that now because we've got the internet. And I think that YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of the other kind of social media platforms give us that ability to meet up and have that chat. But actually, you don't need to physically be near somebody in order to do that. Chris, for example, me and you, we live thousands of miles apart, right? But we can actually meet up and discuss our work, share our thoughts, share experiences very, very easily without having to kind of physically catch a plane.
Exactly.
And that to me is where YouTube comes in. Now, I know that there's other benefits to YouTube as well. I mean, it gets you known, it gets your work known, and if you're looking for somebody or looking for an avenue where you can kind of publicize what you do, YouTube is a great way to do that. As is all the social media. That's not why I got into it, but it may be why I stick with it. But it's not why I got into it. I got into it because, well, actually, it was suggested to me it was a good idea to do it, but none, putting that aside, it was a good idea, just kind of something to do. Also, I think one of the other things that we always used to do is we always used to take pictures of everything. We used to take pictures and put photos into albums and go back and, oh, look what I made here, look what I made here, look what I made here. We can do that now with YouTube, whereas not only we can go back and look at what we've made, but we can look at how we made it as well. And I think that's something that's very different. I don't think that previously that's been something that people would have done. Okay, I know there was video cameras and going back before that cine film, but I don't think many people would have just rigged up a video recorder, just recorded what they were making to then go back and look at it later. And actually, I've done this myself where you make something and then 6 months, a year down the line, you think, oh, yeah, I want to kind of make something like that again. And I just can't remember how I've done it. So bang, back onto YouTube. I'm looking at my own video. Oh, yeah, that's how I did it. And then you can recreate it. So I think there's lots of good reasons to do YouTube.
We've got a couple of questions from out in the chat. We've got one from Jim Dockrell. This is going to be quite hilarious. At the risk of opening up a can of worms, and I don't really need to ask the question after that, but I will anyway. He says carbide or
Carbide
traditional?
versus traditional. Yeah. Simple. Both.
There you go.
I like that answer.
There's no reason to distinguish.
Do you own any carbide tools?
I do.
You do. Did you have you used the ones that presumably Jamie had?
Yeah.
The Easy Wood ones, because he brought those over.
I have used those. Yeah, I did give those a shot. Jamie got me to try it out. They're lovely tools. The thing is, however you look at it, why are you making the thing you're making? If you're making it to have fun, who cares how you get there? Who cares if you're using a traditional tool? Who cares if you've got a pole lathe rather than an electric lathe? Who cares if you're using a CNC machine? To me, if you're making something and you're enjoying that process, and at the end of it, you can go, I've done that. It's all good.
I agree.
I had a go with John's traditional tools and a few catches as well.
Yeah.
So don't get as many catches on carbide and have them flick up and hit you in the head. So I'll stick to the carbides for the time being.
At the end of the day, a carbide tool versus a traditional tool, they are different things. But a carbide, it's just the material. So all we're talking about is a tool that is made with a material that doesn't lose its edge very quickly.
Yeah.
What they are is scrapers.
You just have to do a little bit more sanding.
Having been in Jason's shop and actually worked with Jason on a lathe, I don't know how Jason does it, but every time I turn something in a lathe, and trust me, John, I am nowhere near anybody who will be doing an instructional video on turning anytime soon. But I can tell you that I am at least somewhat proficient to make something on a lathe. And there isn't a piece that I have made yet and I have both as well, carbide and traditional. I have not made a piece yet where I didn't use a combination of both in the process of doing it. Oh, sure. And for me, maybe it's my skill set, could very well be the reason for it. But I normally do the shaping and the roughing and everything else that I need to get done with a carbide tool, but I finish everything with a traditional tool. That's just the way I work. Now, Jason, I know, may work very differently. Jason, I mean, because I know you use both, don't you, Jason?
Yeah, I use both. I think the traditional tools are good to stick with. One, just to know firsthand how to sharpen. I think that's a good skill to have in this hobby. Yeah. But also, it is a whole different feel, and there's certain angles, there's certain curves that I can't. Maybe you can do with a carbide, but I just have a better feel with bull gouge. I have a better feel with, not with my. The only one I don't like is the skew chisel. That scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, it does me too as well. The only thing I use a skew for is if I'm doing pens. Robin
Jacobson can use a skew chisel.
That's what I was talking about. When I was talking about finishing projects, I was talking about using a skew chisel because for some reason, I'm very comfortable with a skew chisel, and it's always done really well for leaving a nice finish on it where I have very little sanding left to do. But I mean, Jamie, what other questions did you have? Because you said you had several.
I've actually got another one. There's John from Be Happy Woodworking Honeybees says, what was the most technically difficult piece that you've made, and what was the most difficult piece from mishaps happening?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. Probably technically the most difficult thing that I've made was actually some of my wall hangings where there's the live edge. Probably actually the one that I did most recently, which was the board that was just shaped like that. And the reason why it was so difficult is because you think you've got that much wood, but you've got that much air on both sides. And you've got to be really careful about where you put your tool. You can't just kind of push into it and hope for the best because something's going to go badly wrong. It's trying to work out where there's wood when all you can really see is a very faint image of where wood used to be is quite tricky. But that said, it's every piece, I would say, or probably my last piece is probably my most tricky, because I like to kind of keep pushing myself. I mean, today I've been playing with hollowing, and I've been trying to kind of make a hollow form that is only 3 or 4 mil thick all the way down, and that was really difficult. Which, by the way, that used a combination of carbide tools and high-speed steel tools. So kind of goes back to answering both questions, really. I don't think there's such a thing as an easy project, because in every project you make, you need a certain amount of skill and you need a certain amount of discipline.
And to some extent, not any bad luck, because you can always get, you can get a catch on a simple project just as easily as you could on a more technical project. But if you don't get the catch on the technical project, that becomes easier because you haven't got to kind of get around it.
Yeah.
That's the reason I can't.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's the reason that I can't get comfortable with the skew chisel. First time I used it, it caught, it bounced back, and then slammed right in my thumb. And now I'm a little bit edgy when I use it.
Yeah. I've definitely been through that myself. I think that as well, when things do go wrong, if you're making again, I don't really kind of like to use the term, but a simpler project, like a bowl, just a bog standard plain fruit bowl. If something goes wrong, you kind of take off a bit more material, or you can sand it out. There are ways that you can fix it in order that at the end of the project, somebody can pick it up and look at it and go, that's great, and have absolutely no idea whatsoever that actually something's gone wrong. When you start getting into some of the more difficult things, I mean, one of the things that I made a couple of months ago now, it was like a small vessel, and it had a cutout down the side, and I was using a router, sorry Jamie, to kind of router out that side, and I got through about 4 of these things before one of them actually managed to get all the way through without suddenly catching and flipping the whole thing apart and destroying it. When you're trying to do something like that, where you're pushing perhaps it's not necessarily you're pushing the abilities of the tools, but you're pushing your own ability, that's when normally if something goes wrong, it's pretty catastrophic.
Would have worked first time if you used a scroll saw.
Would have done, you're right. Yeah, that would have been. I'd love to see how you'd have done that with the scroll saw.
Easy.
But yeah, a lot of it boils down to the piece of timber that you've got. If you're, personally, I feel if you're working on the flat and you're maybe, I don't know, hand planing it, or you're cutting it with a saw, you've got, if something goes wrong, it can probably go wrong in a less dramatic way. Whereas if you've got something spinning fairly fast, and you even have a small catch, or it throws it off at an angle, or it flies off the lathe, unless you catch it in your hand, it's going to hit a piece of concrete, or it could go, when you drop a piece of wood on the floor, it could split. And that's like picking up a chair and smashing it. That's a start from scratch or start again.
Yeah, and that is the case. It's if you're at the early stages in a project, a catch usually just means you make a slightly smaller piece, or you have a bit more sanding to do. If you're in the later stages of your project and you get a catch, pretty much that ends up in the bin. They actually put a video up from when I was in my old shed, and it was my first ever kind of really big serious catch. And my skill set was almost non-existent, and my technique was almost non-existent, and I had a catch, and the bowl exploded into about 4 different pieces. It was only a small thing about this big, and for those that are listening, that's about 5 inches, and a bit of it flew off the lathe and actually hit the door behind me. Now, okay, it wasn't a big workshop, it was only 6 feet away from me, but it actually indented into the wood, and it must have gone in 4 or 5 mil. And I'm thinking to myself, if that had hit me in the face when I was so close to it, that would have really hurt.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That would have readjusted your nose in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which actually one of the more. Go on, Joe. No, you go. All I was going to say was. Right, I'm muting.
Go ahead, Joe. Go,
Do
Joe.
me to do it instead.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute. I'm gonna go ahead and mute Richard just so he can't say anything. Go ahead.
Mine's like completely pointless now. I was literally just saying it's that predictability of the thing. So, like, if you're advising people for using new tools for the first time, like the best safety procedure is try to predict what could go wrong and take the steps to avoid it. So, if you're using a table saw, stand slightly off to the side. So if it does kick back, it's going to miss you. On a lathe, it's almost impossible to guess where that piece is going to fly off, if it is going to fly off. That's what I was saying, and it wasn't worth it at all.
Well, and actually, for the beginners, there was a question here from Crosscut Creation. He was saying, getting started in another thing with the safety, getting started in getting your traditional tools is, how much does that cost to get into sharpening it though? And maybe I'll just chuck an answer out there from my perspective, a cheap perspective, and then I can pass that along to you, John, and you can answer how you sharpen your tools. But generally, like if you wanted the cheap way, the cheapest way I've found is I use sandpaper. Literally, I go to the automotive department, I get high grit sandpaper, and I'll make myself a little. I'll use a small dowel that's about the same as my gouge, and I'll literally just use it to find my edge. Aside from grinding, or I'll just turn it on a flat board and just sharpen it with the bevel. So you don't have to go expensive sharpening tools.
No, you're absolutely right. You don't have to. At the end of the day, a sharpening, you can use sandpaper. I mean, you kind of think going back, okay, a long way, the Stone Age and what have you, they just used to use rocks and what have you. You can do it. It's just, where do you draw that line between cost and making it easier on yourself? So from my point of view, when I first started in wood turning, I bought the standard little bench grinder and I tried to do it by hand and I couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, I could learn to do this. Yeah, I could learn to do this, but that might take me 5 years. I don't want to learn sharpening. I want to learn wood turning. So I bought a jig and I'd use a jig with it and I still didn't get great results. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I bought the Robert Sorby Pro Edge system, and that's what I use now. And ever since I've used that, I don't have to think about my sharpening. I can't sharpen tools. I mean, if I go somewhere where there isn't a Pro Edge and I need to sharpen a tool, I can't do it because I do not have that skill. It's a skill I wish I had, but it's not a skill that I want or feel like I need to learn, because I that's not what I'm into it. I'm into it for putting that gouge against the wood, not for sharpening. I mean, I know it's something that's quite often said about turners. I got into wood turning for turning wood. I didn't get into wood turning to learn to sharpen. And that's exactly it. So I took the easy approach, but it's the expensive approach.
No,
that is the thing about.
Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Well, it's just that is the thing about turning is you do sharpen a lot. Because coming back to that safety factors, you never know when you're going to get a catch. But if you want to minimize those catches, you definitely want to keep your tools as sharp as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I've actually learned more recently that sharpening, on your Pro Edge or your Tormek or however you're doing it, actually what you really want to be doing is you want to be, hand honing between each, cut really, or at least every few cuts. And that's something I think if I started to learn to do that, where you're just putting that little fine edge back on, you're not actually sharpening, just touching it up. It could even reduce the amount of time I spend at the Pro Edge. But
yeah, I know Steve Twidell has like a little diamond credit card type thing that he carries with him.
Yeah,
when he's
a little
doing
diamond
his
file.
Yeah, that's it. And he just flicks it over the edge of the tool and just away he goes again.
Yeah.
It becomes a sort of an interesting, kind of almost philosophical discussion when you start talking about how you sharpen and why you in your case, John, take the expensive route with a sharpening system over doing it by hand because you want to turn, you don't want to sharpen.
Yeah.
It's the same for, why have a circular saw when you could have a hand saw? Why have a whatever, as opposed to something else? You're doing it because it's your hobby. It's what you want to do. So why take that, kind of uncomfortable, irritating, annoying route just because it's cheap. You're there to be happy.
Absolutely.
So make yourself happy. But also you've got the kind of the flip side of that, because if you're making something to sell, there is a certain element of, well, if I can make it a bit quicker, because I'm not sharpening for quite so long, it becomes a more, profitable production then.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of all goes back to that same thing. It's the Carbide or traditional. It largely, it's whatever makes you enjoy what you're doing the most. If you're enjoying what you're doing and you're enjoying it more because you're spending less time doing the things you don't want to be doing, then it's money worth spent.
Absolutely. There's choice in everything, in every little direction that you want to look on whatever topic. So you make your choice based on that. So we talked about you as a family man, you as a maker, and an artist, I guess, for want of a better expression. We've talked about your YouTube channel. We'll get you to plug that in just a second. But when you're not making, do you watch a lot of YouTube as well? Do you get a lot of inspiration?
Yeah, definitely.
Who might you? I mean, is there anyone you want to plug or anything like that?
Yeah, there's. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube. I've watched YouTube for years and years before even the, getting into woodworking. But yeah, there's many YouTubers out there that inspire me. I mean, it's very easy to kind of go with all the classic ones, but probably if I'm going to give a shout out to anybody, the person who gives me the most in terms of making me think about what I'm doing and things that I want to kind of try myself, and that's got to be Pam Harris at Highland Boxes, because she has got an amazing channel. I love what she does. She's amazingly creative, and I just wish I had half the time that she has, but also half the creativity that she has when it comes to what she does with resin.
Look at the looks.
Yeah, and half the looks.
I like Pam's channel as well. I mean, very great shout out if you're gonna give one. That's highly worth it.
Excellent. Has anyone else got any? I mean, I'm getting the impression that Joe's giving me evil stares, and I'm conscious of the time. But has anyone got any last minute questions for John before we have to kind of close this down for a show?
I just want to quickly say basically it's kind of a question. While I was staying at John's house, in John's ex-office was the bedroom that I was staying at. On the wall there was an art piece that he did, and I don't think many people know that John was quite a prolific artist a few years ago, and it was incredible. I just want to know why John doesn't put much more of that out.
Okay, I used to do quite a lot of oil painting. Really enjoyed it, and the reason why I don't do it now, it's just purely down to time. If I didn't have to work, I could probably spend time doing the oil painting and time doing the wood turning, but I don't. And as I mentioned, wood turning has become my passion. I've still got all my oils, all my brushes, all my easel, everything. It's all actually in the workshop.
You can definitely see you got a thing for colour, so that's, well, I guess that's how you've incorporated it into your wood turnings.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I was just going to say, are we likely to see any kind of fruit bowl with an oil painting in the base or something like that? Because you do a lot of colour.
I do. It's unlikely to see anything like that because I don't. If I looked at that, it's not something that I'd be like, I'm really proud of that. So I probably wouldn't do it.
No,
they're different things. You may well. I mean, obviously, you've seen. I've done some resin art on my channel as well. You never know. Maybe there will be a video in the future, and I'll just decide. You know what? I want to do another painting, and I'll put it up on my YouTube channel. I see my YouTube channel is not. It's wood turning. My YouTube channel is me and my creativity now, which is the main reason why I changed the name of it from the Woodworking Shed from days gone by to John Clothier, because I want it to be a place where I can go and publicly put out videos about things that I'm making. It's not just about wood turning.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, along those lines, where can people find you? And on the obviously your YouTube channel, but where else on the interweb can you be found?
So my YouTube channel, it's just John Clothier. Don't confuse me with the guy who's the country and western singer. I agree it's difficult, but yeah, I'm definitely the Woodturner out of the two. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, although I'm not really much of a poster on Twitter, but it's a good place to go to kind of find out about my latest videos being uploaded and the videos that I'm liking, because they get a mention. But yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, it's all down as John Clothier UK.
Wicked. It has been awesome having you on, and I've just realised that I haven't actually asked anyone else who they are going to plug this week, but just very quickly, what's everyone else been watching this week? Jason?
Alex 2Q.
Sorry, who?
Alex
Awesome.
2Q. He makes a lot of cool stuff. He's been making some money clips and different things out of metal, and just like little shop upgrades and things he does.
Alex does great videos. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool guy in the community too.
Definitely.
I love his logo, the blue and yellow. It's a very striking.
It sticks out, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
It's smart actually.
Cool. What about you, Jamie?
What about me? Well, obviously, before doing anything else, I've got to do the normal.
Jamie's page.
It's just a quick that it's official. Mr. Dave Capasandon from the YouTube channel Turning Works cannot eat a jam donut without licking his lips.
Twice.
He can choke by eating one, but he can't actually eat one. But who am I watching? I am watching Chris Fisher, the blind woodturner. He did a review of the UKIS event that we all went to, or John and I went to. He done a walkthrough, showed the vendors, done a few interviews, and he actually done the Easy Wood Tools Chuck Challenge, and he actually done that in under a minute. He done it in about 48 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. And John actually tried it as well, nearly killed Chris in the process.
Yeah, I did. It's true. Yeah.
So yeah, Chris Fisher, the blind woodturner, is my shout out.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Joe, have you been watching the YouTubes this week?
Yeah, my shout out is Make It Solve. She's done another one of her art pieces, but it's like really thoughtful this week because she's tied it in with the 70th anniversary of the NHS. So she's done like a canvas piece and incorporated a stethoscope. And like I really liked how she took the stethoscope lead or cable, I don't know what it would be called, but like
Stethoscope.
the cable bit to it. Anyway,
Yeah, the stethoscope.
That's not a whatever. Anyway, she's twisted it round so it's like a love heart, and then like she's coloured all the bits inside the love heart and put 70 on the actual like stethoscope itself, whatever. But anyway, go and watch it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, we'll let Joe and Jamie argue the semantics. And yeah, I haven't seen that yet, Joe, but I have seen it cross my feed and I meant to watch it, so I'll definitely go check that out. Richard, Dirk Gibbons put out a video about a week ago where he did this really cool little pallet wood project about how to make condiment holders. And if you haven't seen it, it just looked like such a fun project to do that you could knock one out like in an afternoon. It turned out really cool. I don't want to give away too much of the video, but the one that holds the ketchup and the mustard, it looks like a little picnic table. And the other one that he did for the salt and pepper looks like a little bench and stuff. Dirk, I mean, absolutely cool, man. Because he used pallet wood, made it look real pretty, and they're useful. So Dirk Gibbons, Sumo's project, gets my shout out this week.
Awesome. Jamie and I know just how much fun they are to make, actually, don't we, Jamie?
Yeah. Especially whilst having beer and a barbecue.
Yeah, and annoying all the neighbours.
Yeah. I don't think we can say on publicly what Richard had already nicknamed his neighbours.
But that is a story for another day. Well, we won't hijack the show for that. But yes, I was going to shout that one out actually, but I was told before the show that I wasn't allowed to. I can't remember Chris's exact words, but there was something along the lines of, "No, that's my shout out." So my shout out this week.
Chris wouldn't let me do my shout out either. I had to change mine.
Yeah, it's because you both wanted. Dirk, Mr. Gibbons, you were being fought over this weekend by Richard, Jamie, and Jason and I, and I got it because I claimed you first, my friend. And yes, you are a piece of merchandise that the first one gets. I hope that doesn't bother you. So yeah, Dirk, all three of us wanted to shout you out today, but I got there first, and so the rest of them had to suck it.
Sorry, Richard, we cut you off. What were you saying there?
Well, I thought it just occurred to me that...
Did I cut you? Wait, I'm sorry, Richard, did I cut you off? Go ahead.
The risk of making Ellen feel like the second place on this one. But my shout out is actually Ellen from Crossmelon. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's actually episode 2 of the Full Fly series that she's doing as part of what I suspect will be a large collaboration between a lot of the Fools with Tools people and a few others. Has anyone watched the series on telly, Firefly? It's kind of along those lines, and she's knitted this awesome hat. So yeah, cracking video this week from Ellen. Really enjoyed that, and looking forward to the rest of the series. So that should be good. Awesome. But we've gone a few minutes over. Not too bad, Joe. It's only 5 minutes over, and I think we started a little bit late. And by the time you've edited it, it'll be about an hour, I think.
It's fine. Right. We're doing it this week anyway, so it don't matter.
I'll just crack on then. Excellent, John. Thank you so much for coming on. It has been awesome, as always with guests, and we really should get together to do a kind of an in-person collabby kind of thing because
sounds good.
The distance we are apart, I think it would be rude not to at some point in the future. So. Many thanks for coming on. I look forward to that. Everyone that's in the chat, the chat is still going strong down there. It always amazes me. But if you are still listening, thank you for listening. If you're not listening, we'll say what we like about you, as always, and after the show. I've been Rick Morley. Everyone else has been their own personalities. So thanks for listening. You'll take care, and we will be back next week with another show, I hope. Take care.
Have a great week, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Take her easy.
I'll catch you.